Let me see. I think we are golden. I started a little early today, so I just want to give you guys a few minutes to join me before I get my ramblings done. Hang on. Let's bring you a little closer too. There. Make sure you can see me. All right. Time to get fit looking, hey? There we go. Now it's menopause and flashes. So I've got a couple of you here with me now. I'm going to get the session started. Thank you if you are joining me today. It's a very big week. It's Independence Day coming up, and I know a long weekend for many of you. Selecting the right plate is what we are talking about today. And if you have a plate, the good news is there's no such thing as a best machine for any one person. There's lots of different machines. There's lots of features on many of those different machines. There are different movement types. There are different operating frequencies and amplitudes and all kinds of things. So there is no such thing as the best plate, because the best plate is really more decided by you as an individual based on your needs and goals, what you're planning on using it for. And we're going to talk about just some realistic things that I want you guys today. I want you to be completely honest with yourself as I ramble through some of my suggestions today. The reason there is no best plate is because the plate doesn't do it all. It's not a matter of just setting it on a program or a certain speed to obtain the benefits that you're hoping to accomplish. Selecting the right plate is it just as important in choosing the right complement for your lifestyle than it is the performance and other things, because the way that you get benefits from using a vibration machine are directly related to how often you are using it. So the biggest tip I'm going to start you off with today when you're selecting the best plate is, to be honest, it doesn't matter what plate you get or plan to get. It's you using it consistently that's going to get you across the finish line on the benefits, which is really the reason you're looking at these in the first place. So let's talk about point one. My 5 points today, I've only covered the first 3 briefly, but the first one I suggested was, what are your plans for use? So what are you planning on using this thing for? Are you looking at recovering from something? Are you hoping to lose weight? Are you trying to get back into shape? Are you trying to complement something that you're training for, enhance perhaps your training routine? There's lots of different reasons that people, go looking and researching a vibration plate, and with what goals you have in mind are going to be different. The other thing that's different is you, the person. What are you physically dealing with? Do you have any deficiencies? Are you dealing with any medical concerns or chronic issues? So selecting a plate and your plans for use are the first thing I want you to have in mind, is because your plans for use are going to be different. Maybe you're looking at it for bone density, or maybe you're looking at it for weight loss. So I really want you to hone in on, why are you looking at this plate? Is it because everybody else is doing it, or you're just seeing some fancy ads on Facebook? So it's really important to kind of be realistic with yourself. Usually there's a primary reason that you're looking at these plates. So I want to get stronger, bone density, some of the things I've mentioned already. So if you are coming from a place of inactivity, many of us are not exercise. Notice I say us. Many of us are not exercise for purpose people. So sometimes a vibration machine, in theory, it's this little shaky machine that's going to do everything for me. And just by pressing a button, there's a mentality out there, unlike other activity tools, and it is a tool. It's simply a tool that you can use as a form of activity. But a vibration plate is also a very viable tool for chronic issues, symptom management, recovery. So when I say your plans for use, many of you that are not coming from a place of poor health or chronic issues probably wouldn't consider a vibration plate as anything different than a treadmill or an elliptical, just a different thing. So it is a tool. The cool thing about a vibration plate, if you've got your plans for what those goals are in mind, is you've got to look at the second part of that is what is the body you're starting with. So part of when you're selecting a plate, that a very important point about the body that we're dealing with, if you are frail, if you lack balance, if you're not stable, you're weak, very often the biggest, the baddest model may have more features and more options, but it's maybe not as portable or light or as easily for you as a user to maneuver and use it in the way that I want you to use it. So if you're coming from a place of being very frail, you're just starting a recovery path, maybe you're just becoming active after a long period of inactivity, or you've gone through some medical concerns, I encourage using the plate regularly for symptom management, pain relief, energy. So if using it regularly means that you need to move it around to have it close to you during the day, maybe you're taking it with you to the office or the cabin over the summer. So when you're selecting a plate, the first thing I want you to keep in mind is, do I need it to be portable? Okay. Portability is going to be based on, I can lift up and walk around with probably 2 of Life Pro's Rumblex in my hands, but I'm in good shape and I'm strong enough to do so. If you're the frail client that's struggling getting upstairs and getting up out of your chair, maybe a 30 to 40 pound all bells and whistles model isn't as applicable and going to be as regularly used as something that's light and portable. So portability, whether you want to be able to move it around, this is a really important thought when you're considering plates, long before you think about what speed does it have and what level does it have and what programs. Understand what's going to be easily accessible for you if you're planning on using this on a regular basis. So to my users out there that are chronic, you're dealing with something that's going to need to be managed, you're doing a lot of self-care. A plate is a great way to reduce the self-care time and obtain relief of those symptoms in a shorter period, whether it's pain, swelling, constipation. A vibration plate makes whatever you're doing more effective in less time. So if you are a chronic user and you're taking care of yourself, I'm all about building up that independence, keeping you strong and healthy. I can almost guarantee that something you can pick up and maneuver easily is going to get used more often than something that's down in the basement in the corner of the workout room that you only visit once, twice a day. If you're dealing with fatigue, pain, some of these chronic issues, accessibility and close access to your plate is essential, because I do recommend using it, for a couple, 3 minutes, really whenever your body presents symptoms. So if it's a swelling thing, if it's a pain thing, you might be using it 5-6 times a day for short periods. And you're not going to want to go all the way down the stairs and across the hallway or all the way up the stairs to your bedroom. So sometimes where when you're selecting a plate, we get bedazzled with the lights and some of the features, and we picture it in our bedroom. But if you're not spending a lot of time in your bedroom during the day, maybe a better position for your plate is right beside the kitchen island or in front of the sofa. So you're using it with your feet while you're seated in front of the television. So just something to be mindful of. I'm going to place, this is the hex plate model. Okay, so this is another point that we will talk about as far as features. This one has some of the therapeutic magnetic bumps shaped like feet. I'm not a big fan of the bumps unless you're using it primarily for seated use. Reason is, when you stand on the plate, and I'm a big fan of recommending no shoes. So when I stand on a plate like this for long periods and I'm doing like fitness things like squats or lunges, you may find over time the therapeutic bumps, although very stimulating and invigorating, long-term, you may want to mat up your surface with a mat. So I have a little mat that I've cut. So if you are using one of these models now, or you're considering using it, I do recommend just placing some cushion for standing poses where you're bearing your weight so it doesn't dig into the feet. It may not be an issue for you. For me, it was, but a mat certainly resolves that. So let's take a look at the difference in size between these two plates. I have Life Pro's new Hex plate model placed on top of the Rumblex 4D, which is my preferred Rumblex model. The Plus or the Max are my two faves. Life Pro is always coming out with new options based on, things you're asking them for, innovations in things that have progressed with technology. But the basics of selecting a plate, the size, the weight, the features, regardless of the options you may have available, they're just catering and offering you choice for your personal taste. I deal with a lot of chronic issues, and for chronic issues, bad knees, bad back, pain, hypermobility, whatever it is you're dealing with, I prefer a flat plate surface. The curve presents a little bit more challenge, a little bit more resistance, a little more work on your part, especially for the fitness pieces. So if you are an athlete, you're looking for a little bit more aggressive training, more intense training, you may enjoy a curved style more. I prefer flat because I'm trying to be functional as a trainer. So you can see these are almost about probably half the size, and the hex plate is about a third of the weight. The mini is another good choice if you're looking for something more compact, less the bumps, because you do plan on doing some more standing exercise time on it, or just weight bearing. Perhaps you're looking at improving bone density. That's a big one right now. Which is the best plate for bone density? There is no best plate for any benefit. There is no best plate for bone density or weight loss or strength. It's what you do on the plate and consistency. Selecting the plate very much needs to complement your lifestyle and your plans for use. So if you do have a dedicated space, you want a few more bells and whistles, you are planning on progressing to standing exercises, or the majority of your time is going to be standing exercises. If you're 6'4", 6'5", 210, 220 pounds, weight capacity may be there on a smaller model, but when you're standing and doing exercises, your foot placement and the size, how your body, feels on the machine, you're probably going to want a larger, a little bit heavier model if you're planning on doing exercise, aggressive, same type of stuff you're doing at the gym. The plates are the larger plates, the Rumblex, many of them have expanded weight capacities, which is really important if you're looking at combining tools with them, perhaps some weights, or you're just more of an athletic style user. The smaller type plates are going to be better for the under desk use. Maybe I'm doing a combination of some seated or standing, but again, a lot of it, the advantage of a smaller plate over a bigger plate is different. You're never going to get the perfect plate for everything that every person wants out there. You're never going to get the features the same. A smaller plate, like the hex plate, the mini, the waiver, each movement type, and there's different movement types with plates, each movement type requires a different motor. So when you're looking at something with a singular movement, Life Pro, of course, offers oscillating movement on all of their plates. That is the basic beginning foundational movement, that teeter-totter, that oscillating movement. All of the benefits everybody's looking for have been accomplished in those machines. Stop looking at frequencies or protocols or presets. It's not that simple. There's other factors with the machine. But every model offers oscillating movement. And as you step up into combo models, the turbos, the Hoverts, where there's 2 different movements, or the Rumblex, where there's 3, each movement type requires a different motor. So you're not going to get 3 different movement types and all the features in something that weighs 10 to 15 pounds, because the housing, trying to fit 3 motors and the mechanics in here, all of a sudden you're back up to 30, 40 pounds, defeating the portability goal, which we were seeking. So sometimes people have 2 plates for this reason, because, this is your everyday working out machine, and this is your take with you to the office or your upstairs machine. If you really get into these and you're using them regularly, especially to manage symptoms, it's not uncommon to have a small, basic use, compact model, just so you've got the portability. When we step up to the larger plates, they, of course, as I mentioned, have oscillating movement, but pulsation is another type of movement. It's a very mild vertical up and down movement, good for foot stimulation. It's going to increase some circulation and some blood flow, but it's not going to give you the same amount of overall benefits and long-term gains as oscillating. The other style, lateral, which moves completely side to side. Again, it's a variation. It's a variation on a theme. The primary foundational movement is oscillating. The others are, think of them more as features. So if you're combining movements, you want to mix things up. They're a great way to progress. But one movement style, pulsation is not better for this, and lateral is not better for that, and oscillating, it's been marketed wrong for 30, 40 years, not by Life Pro, but by the industry as a whole. And I really want you guys to understand that the sooner you understand the combinations of how these things work on your machines, not only does it make it easier to select the right one for your use, but how to use the darn thing. So you're selecting the plate as part of it, but what the heck do you do with it when you get home? That's where most of us struggle. So portability is the first thing I want you to consider if it's something you need for your lifestyle. Where you're using it, I kind of covered to a degree. So if you have a dedicated space, you're planning on using it 2 to 3 times a week in your workout room, maybe a Rumblex model or the Tumo, the Turbo or the Covert, you can justify that a little bit more because you're not carting it back and forth 4 times a day for the symptom management piece. The other thing that's really important, so again, think about portability, what your plans, are you planning on using this as a lifestyle tool, a feel-good thing, or is this a workout? Picking the plate for your body type, a good size for your plans of use is something to consider. I was talking briefly and I got off tangent about a larger user. Sometimes if you're doing dynamic movements on the smaller models, they're light and they tend to wobble around if you're doing a lot of athletic poses. So another reason to maybe consider a larger plate, a heavier plate, if you do plan on doing more dynamic activities, because you want something that's going to be a little bit more stable to support that. Third point I want to cover. So we talked about plans for use. That's point 1. What are you planning on using this thing for? Where are you planning on using it is point 2. And the third one, which is a really tough one, because it has nothing to do with the machine, but it has everything to do with you, is you got to be realistic, guys. Be realistic in what you're actually going to commit to doing on this machine. If you're 45, 50 years old, and you've never exercised for purpose in your life, putting a vibration machine into your home isn't going to change the desire or the discipline. I want to be completely honest with you. You're the one that's got to step up to the plate and use the thing consistently. Consistently is the way that you get results on these machines. Not a setting, not a frequency, not what this study said. If you are not showing up and using your plate regularly, you're not going to see the passive benefits. And the passive benefits can be anything from strength to weight loss to bone density. Your body is in an environment that's forcing to be stabilized. And we all improve in different ways. But the other realistic thing I want to share with you is if you do have big goals, weight loss, bone density, strength, you're toning, you're trying to become defined to compete perhaps in some events, the machine's not going to do all the work. It's going to facilitate for many of you that are unable to exercise due to medical issues, deficiencies. It certainly makes the moves kinder on the body, and it gives you more benefit in less time with a little less effort on your part. These things are very low impact, and in many cases, less impact than walking. But if you want to lose 80 pounds, you can't just stand there forever. You're going to get some short-term gains, but eventually you're going to need to, just like going to the gym, you're going to need to incorporate some exercises that target the goals you're trying to achieve. So if you are planning on doing squats, you're planning on doing push-ups, or perhaps working towards getting to those types of exercises, being realistic means, okay, just because I get the best machine doesn't mean I'm going to start doing push-ups next week. You've got to be realistic and understand whatever plate you decide, you're the one that's got to show up and stick with it, if that makes sense. The fourth point was consistency, and I kind of rolled those in. So whichever plate you decide, and sometimes selecting the plate, what's going to give you the best chance of being consistent with using your plate? Does something like this appeal to you more? because it's simple in its programming. There's not a whole lot of bells and whistles. You need to be realistic in what you're actually going to enjoy spending time on and using it. Because if you're not enjoying it, you're not going to stick with it long term. Okay. The last point in selecting a plate is simplicity. Okay. I recommend simplistic exercises. Keep it simple, make them very effective. 3-4 exercises could be an entire routine that lasts you forever if you're just mixing up, the settings and the programs from time to time to keep things progressing. But if simplicity appeals to you and you're the type of person that's looking for, I just don't want to think, I want to set it, I want to forget it. I have no plans to use this thing for anything other than feeling good at the end of my day, or my use is very simple, or maybe I've got big goals, but I'm not a highly technical person and I don't like using phones and apps, and I want it to be simple. If simplicity is something that you seek in your life, and this is something you're planning on bringing in your life to manage your stress, get the exercise going, sometimes a simple model with one movement and faster or slower is the best approach. If you are techie, if you've been using a plate for a while, if you've got an exercise background, if you like a challenge, if you're competitive, personality type sometimes dictates whether you enjoy the experience or not. So sometimes a Romblex or a Turbo or the Hovert, the models with combos, maybe you like to mix it up and you like lots of variety and change. And, these are things other than the manufacturer's settings and suggested benefits that I just want you guys to think about. So when you're selecting a plate from, that long-term goals perspective, the smaller models tend to have more speeds. They break those frequency ranges up into more speeds, so you've got more adjustability. The larger models have lower speeds. They tend to be 60 is the range, let's say, on the Rumblex. But the actual operating frequency, for all of you asking me these frequency questions, well, what frequency is best for this or that? There is no best frequency. And there's also 2 other things you need to think about. Frequency is one of the specs. It's one of the ingredients in the recipe. Amplitude, how much you are moving each time the plate moves you, is probably, if not more important than amplitude to understand. It's certainly up there or tied. Amplitude, the amount a machine moves, changes based on its side. Think of a teeter-totter. Depending on how the manufacturer has created the machine, logically, this machine here below, the larger, the Rumblex Plus, has more amplitude than the hex plate. Why? When you're standing on the plate with your feet close to the center versus wide, it changes how much you're moving. That is what amplitude is. That's what drives how much impact, how intense or how strong the machine feels. So positioning is part of it, but if you're not planning on doing, like big old mean squats or some taekwondo moves, or you're not a super tall user and you're just looking at this for feel good, a smaller model is probably going to fit the bill. If you are adding this to a training program, if you are taller, if you like standing wider with your feet, in oscillating movement, you are always in control. So the feet close is less movement, the feet wide is more movement. Keep that in mind when you're selecting the size of a plate. It's going to change a little bit. It's not that the machine is different, it's of a different design. So the amount of movement is going to be based on how wide the plate is in many, many cases. And then movement type. Obviously, I have a preference. I've been talking oscillating, pivotal, side alternating, vertical. When you start looking at the research, there's a lot of terms being thrown around there. But I want you to recognize there's a whole lot of different frequency ranges out there. Vertical machines have completely different operating specifications than oscillating. So when somebody comes to me and says, oh, this frequency is best for that, I can tell you what machine it was just based on the specs. And very often it's not even related to the machine that you're working with. Does that mean you're not going to get the benefits? Absolutely not. All the benefits that are claimed by every model that LifePro offers are possible on all models. selecting the right plate for you very much is driven by your personal choice, very often your budget. But the big point I want to circle back to out of the 5 I covered is be realistic. What do you visualize yourself using every day? If you're looking to gain bone density, we're not talking about a bone density study. The first thing I want to do is make you stable. What you do to accomplish strong bones or strong muscles or lose weight is a journey. It's a process that you go through. A vibration plate is simply a tool that facilitates the activity piece. So it makes it more possible for those of you that are dealing with chronic issues and just can't get to those traditional activities. Perhaps it's an enhancement to an existing routine that you're already working with. Perhaps it's something that you need to do now because you've had a deficiency, or you've aged and you're dealing with some chronic issues. And sometimes a vibration plate just makes the exercise positions, the stretches that we love to do more possible. So I want to recap, and I do want to come back for questions. There were 4 kind of points I covered. I'm not getting too terrible into specs today. I have a bazillion other videos on that, and I know I rambled too much already. So first, your plans for use. What are you planning on using this thing? That's the first thing you should have in your mind. Not that this one has a higher number and it's probably going to do better. You're comparing apples and oranges. Where do you plan on using it? Is it going to be stuck in the basement where you'll never go visit it? Or would you be more likely, from a personality perspective, to use it if it's closer to you? Have you got room in your living room or your kitchen for the model that you're considering? Think about where you plan on using it. And if you're using it, as I said, for chronic issues, like I coach a lot of my clients to do, you want to make sure it's accessible. So, maybe this is okay. The Rumblex models have wheels. There's lots of ways that they can be portable. But if you're wanting something that you can pick up and carry around and take with you, you should look or consider a smaller plate. Or sometimes, that, as I said, that's the reason a lot of people have a second plate, is because you're using it for different things. Third, probably the most important point out of everything I covered today, is be realistic. Be realistic with what you're actually going to do. Be realistic with what your budget allows. Don't put off a purchase on a $500 Rumblex because you think only the best model is going to accomplish the goals. That's absolutely false. You're going to get the benefits you want using any of LifePro's plates. It's a matter of what you're doing on the plate, and brings me to point 4, being consistent, using it regularly. That's what's going to get you across the finish line. And for those of you out there that, as I said, are not technically challenged, you have a lot going on, you seek simplicity, you don't want a whole lot of bells and whistles. Sometimes something with a simple operation, basic movements, is going to be something that appeals to you more. If you're looking for more bells, whistles, more functions, I think you'll have a little bit more enjoyment out of some of the Rumblex models. They've got the multi-movements as other features if you like. Some of them have Bluetooth speakers and lights. So, sometimes it's a matter of having, aesthetics are important to you as well. So there's lots of different features. And when you're comparing these things, I want you guys to bring yourself into that decision-making process and be realistic with what's going to work best in your space, or with, maybe this is a family investment that everybody's looking at using, things to consider. I hope that's shed some light. I'm blinded by my lights, so I'm going to come a little bit closer here. And I just want to see if I have any questions today. Chuck Harris, I love the pulsation on my Rumblex 4D. It's perfect for taller, heavier person. And feel is an important thing, Chuck. There's probably 20 things that I'd recommend you consider if you're looking at a plate. But I don't want to keep you guys here for 5 days. Sometimes if it's just for feel-good use, you got to pay attention to what feels good to you. What feels good to me might be different, or what feels good to Joel might be different. We all have different sensitivities, and then part of selecting a plate is also what feels good. I said earlier on in the session, if it doesn't feel good and you don't like it, you're probably not going to use it regularly regardless. So thank you. That's a very, very valid point. If you are frequency or program comparing, it's the worst way to compare a machine, and you're just going to get yourself frustrated, and you're going to get different answers because there's different machines that have different specifications, and it's who am I to make these claims? But it's, for me as a vibration plate specialist of almost 20 years, it is painful going into PubMed and reading the studies on some of these vibration plates and some of these reviews, because you can't compare, this type of machine to that type of machine strictly on frequency. There's amplitudes to be discussed. There's, what are the exercises that you're doing? Are you doing them once a week? Or are you doing 6 times a week? There's so many nuances. The plate is just a tool. And then to Chuck's point, an example I'll give you in the research, that one of the studies out early on is that the balance is best improved at 6 hertz. The really slow, really choppy speeds kind of mimic a Bosu ball. So they've been associated with being balanced and destabilizing speeds. And that very well may be true, but that's only applicable to one style of movement. Oscillating plates have large amplitudes. They have large swing. And I prefer them not only because they're more like how we move and they feel more natural, but you're always in control over the intensity. If it feels too strong, bring the feet closer. If you want more action, widen the feet up, regardless of speed. Stop focusing on speed. But a vertical platform, pulsation as an example, they start at about 25 to 30 hertz. They don't even go 6 hertz. So does that study apply? No, it's a completely different type of plate. So what I will also say on that same point is when you're on an oscillating plate and you're moving side to side, your body's kind of always forced to be stabilizing itself on the plate. That's how you kind of, by association, get a little bit of core strength and stability. Your posture feels like it improves even after one session. I deal with a lot of chronic issues, and in my opinion, 6 hertz is very slow, very choppy. The body's got a lot of time to guard and protect and react. And I never, ever use anything under 10 for my clients that have poor stability and balance, because the slow speeds are destabilizing. If you've got poor balance, I want to improve it, but I don't want to challenge it by wobbling you off the machine. There are better ways to accomplish certain goals, but you need to, as a trainer, as a user, you need to acknowledge your starting point and what you're dealing with, and not just think that setting your machine at some program or setting is going to be the way to accomplish that. There's a little bit more to it. But I want to stress that all of Life Pro's models offer oscillating. It's the foundational movement. You have to show up and do the work. And Roseanne, myself, and Amber are here to fill in the moves. When I went on to Restream this morning, which is the platform that Life Pro uses to facilitate its sessions, it said you are the 556th live. Now, that doesn't mean they're all training sessions, but the vast majority of them absolutely are. So I want to encourage you, if you are looking for specific answers, I've rambled, you've selected your plate, you've got that thing sitting in your living room, and now it's what do I do with it? Use the search function. This group has gotten astronomically huge, and it's almost next to impossible sometimes to jump on every comment from my perspective and offer support directly. But the answers are there. If you're looking for, well, how do I use my waiver for bone density, or how do I use my Rumblex 4D for toning, or how to, there's a lot of specifics we're using. And when you're asking those type of questions, if you haven't worked with a trainer or set side of a gym, we lack the background for the most part of what moves do I do to accomplish this. Forget the settings and everything else. So if you're looking for some structure for moves, some suggested settings, how your machine works, there's search in the groups. So search in that field, and I think you'll find several posts on any of the topics that you're looking for. And just like going to the gym or any activity in life, a vibration plate, there is no definitive black and white approach to using it. We all have preferences. We all have different body types, and we all have different goals that we're trying to accomplish. So what appeals to us and what's realistic within our own lifestyle and budgetary allowance is going to vary. So it's good that Life Pro has offered such a variety in plates to cater to your own, your needs, but also your desires too. So if you have any questions ever, if you have a topic that you would like us to discuss, please tag me at Debbie with a Y. Sometimes as well, if you have a comment or a question, you're watching this on a recorded basis, sometimes things get lost in the verbiage. So please tag me at Debbie with a Y. If you have a question, I will be happy to get back to you. Good luck in selecting your plate. Again, be realistic in what you're looking at using it for, and think about portability. Think about where you're placing it, and keep some of these things on the forefront as well. And don't get so wrapped up in the speeds and the benefits. And sometimes it just makes it more complicated, and it's demotivating to a degree too. So any questions, we're here to fill in the blanks as well. Have a great rest of your week, and I look forward to seeing you guys here next Monday. Don't work too hard. Thanks for joining me.